Hey everybody. It's early morning here on Friday. Made my choice for what the next assignment will be. So that'd be fair to wait till after 12. So anyway, but basically I want to make sure that we know that like obviously we're gonna have two lectures a week. So as like last week, I'm in my son's room by the way. My wife's sleeping, but anyway, you know, we will be having two lectures a week because it is a fast moving course. Things move moving quickly, and we're already like basically starting our third assignment already. So um anyway, let me actually share the screen here. A bit of an issue with this before. Oh, it's working fine now. Okay, so all right. Let me go to actually the assignment. All right, so this one was actually like really like tough for me because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give extra credit to all those. I'm gonna actually assign this the Rutgers reaction recent to the recent 6% tuition hike, which is one of the most highest ones in years, and I think is newsworthy. I think it's also this month the Board of governors, which governs the university, is actually going to be meeting, and they might just impose another big one. So, and they always do that in June. So, this probably, as you can see, there's actually background here, but I'm not looking for a report on the actual tuition increase. I'm looking for people a reaction story. This is actually essentially would be like a follow up. People reacting to the how they're handling the whole idea of paying to live here, paying to go here. So that's what I'm looking for. And what I'll be doing is I'll be setting up a discussion point. Actually, to be honest with you, I'm actually meant to do that before this started. But anyway, discussion point. Yeah, let's just get rid of this one. Um, essentially will be this. Okay, and I expect people to basically participate in this. This is again, people discuss like how do I get class participation. I'm going to ask people to actually contribute. Take off your reporter hat and put on your student hat and say and answer this question. Please let us know how you feel about the Rutgers tuition hike and how you and others are dealing with it. And then also what I want you to do is to please provide anecdotes. And what I'm doing is I'm going to talk about what anecdotes are. Please provide anecdotes. They're basically little stories within a story. They basically get the like when you ever have a larger story like about tuition hikes, you want to like people to tell personal relatable tales that basically talk about, well, I have to work two jobs and like, I have to take care of my parents at the same thing. And it's like this little story within a story that kind of connects with people. Okay. Um, to back up your opinions. Okay. Um, okay. So, um, anyway, I actually think that the best idea would have been, and I have to admit, there's a big reason why I'm not doing this. I'll just post it. Okay. Big reason why I'm not doing this is because I feel like I mean, I felt like cowardly and not like putting this out there as an issue, but the what's going on in the Middle East, I feel as though so basically just contribute reply. Okay. Like what I feel is going on in the Middle East is actually really the best story, obviously. I think one reason why I didn't pick it is because it's not necessarily happening right now in the summer, but that's not really the best excuse in the world because it will be happening again in the fall, I would assume. I think it's the biggest story happening on college campuses these days. But what I'm asking everybody to do is to actually like contribute their own opinions. And I right now I feel like I want to protect people um, from. I mean, I made class participation a thing in this class, and here I'm going to have you. I mean, I could have people go anonymous. I thought of that, but I thought, well, that's not really something I'm really trying to teach right now, is anonymous sourcing. I'm just trying to get people to talk on the record. And I feel like, you know, expressing opinions on this is extremely controversial. And, I'm not trying to show a side or anything like that. Um, I believe what my only side is like what the Beatles said. I know it's corny, but all you need is love. I just wish everybody would just love each other. I know. I'm 57. What can I say? I'm a romantic. Um, but anyway, I feel like it's something that if people are required to give their opinions with their names on it might not be helpful to them, no matter how they feel about the situation. So I feel as though I would rather, I think the greater good is to actually just really, um, steer away from that situation. However, I do think it's the best idea. So people who came up with that idea will be getting extra credit. So at least I can offer that much. So people who offered the 6% tuition hike increase, that's by the way, one of the largest tuition hikes in years, I think at least 15, and the Middle East crisis, Gaza, Israel, et cetera, um, you'll all be getting extra credit, okay? Which means at least a half grade higher on this assignment, this one in particular, okay? Um, so I really thought hard about it. I had a really good conversation with a student last night about World War II, and what people went through in that whole situation. And it really like made me feel like, I got, people, risk their lives for a cause, and it's the 80th anniversary of D-Day. Um, and I'm not, again, not taking a side here or anything like that, just saying that. So I really kind of really like almost came to that point, but then I just felt like it's just better to protect people. Um, anyway, so please do a story that answers this question. Congratulations to those of you who are getting extra credit. People, please get student reaction to the recent Rutgers tuition hike, 6%. But another one will likely coming this month, which makes it timely. So basically, what you have essentially is that you're gonna have another vote. And they've been raising tuition. The only time they didn't raise tuition was the year of I think in the last like however many years was when there was COVID. That was in 2020. So what I want you to do is interview 3 to 5 students, but really like I mean you can get that information also from the discussion points, because I know you get summer times, you're not gonna be able to get people like silly like in your dorm room because there's no dorm room. But like I say in this video outside the discussion point, let me know if you need help getting students. Like I said, I've created a discussion point, that sort of thing. Okay, and then this is going to be due in a little less than a week. Unlike what I do in the fall and the spring, I kind of have to rush things, as I said. So I'll be actually giving out another assignment on Monday. Please pay attention for that one because that one's going to be pretty heavy duty. We're actually nearing the second half of the semester, if you can believe that. And that one's gonna that now we're gonna be moving into more of the reporting phase of things. So please like watch out for that one, okay? And I actually have a guest speaker on that one, okay? All right. So this one again, now one thing I have to keep in mind, and this is one thing I saw on a lot of your first papers, and don't forget the rewrite for that one is due today, Friday, end of day. And you all should have gotten back your so that one's due on Friday today. Then your rewrite to the Lee's assignment will be due on Monday. Okay, so you have that, and then this will be due on Wednesday. Okay, and then you'll have a rewrite for this one too. Okay. Now, what I showed you earlier in the week was I showed you essentially what the inverted pyramid is, but that's a very broad and general way of describing how a news story is structured. Now, what you have to keep in mind, though, by the way, again, this is not a story on a tuition hike. This is a story on the reaction to it. Like I was showing you with the string theory, stories are very narrow and focused. Okay, so you have to keep things very specific. The tuition hike is history; it's happened already. That sort of thing. Another thing too is what you're getting is the newest, biggest thing. Newest, biggest thing is how students are dealing with it 1 year later, and now dealing with a possible one coming this month. Okay. Who knows how much that one's gonna be. This one they blamed on the strike from last year. So anyway, you got to focus specifically and solely on the lead and in the story on the actual reaction, not the hike, the reaction. Okay. Um, so theme the story around the central prevailing consensus opinion with a declarative sentence in your lead. Rutgers students say they're pleased, not pleased, with the school imposing one of the highest tuition hikes in years. Or perhaps there's a consensus opinion is more mixed. Rutgers students say they have mixed opinions about the school. I'm sorry, I'm missing a word verb. They're having one of the highest tuition hikes in years. Okay. So you can just really focus specifically on that. Okay. And then what you need to do is you need to, and this is where I get as probably as specific as I possibly can in terms of a new story structure. And that is it's an inverted pyramid kind of on the outside, but on the inside, it typically follows a typical formula starting with the lead. Now, let me just make sure I get this in here first. About the school imposing. Okay, so this is how they spell lead in journalism. I know it's like journalism jargon, but what you have next essentially is what's called a transition. Okay, so what you do is when this type of story gets a little more complex, like more complex than let's say a typical car accident story or something like that, when you actually have some like different varying opinions in it and stuff like that, you want to be able to kind of guide the reader along. Okay, starting with essentially as a transition. Okay, a transition essentially is the um introduction to the story. It's I'm sorry, it's basically the introduction to the first point of the story that backs up the lead. Okay, so you basically have a story. Let's say it's Rutgers students hate the tuition hike and it's hurt them. Okay, so it's not gonna be this simple, this lead, but hate the tuition hike. Okay, so give us like so you want to answer the who, what, why, how, why, where, when, and how questions with the transitions. What's one reason why they hate it? Well, one reason is that they can't afford it and have to work more. Okay. So basically your transition would be something like, they say basically takes the larger idea and breaks it down into smaller pieces. Say basically provides the reasons for the overall theme of the story. Okay. And the anecdote, John Brown said he has to work. So this is where you break it down into the smallest piece you can, most specific way you can. Has to work 2 jobs and has failed 2 classes as a result. And you get down into that. He said he'll try harder next semester. Okay. You get down into that personable, relatable experience. Okay. And a quote maybe to kind of, I kind of screwed up, but I'll do better. A direct quote, which I'll get into a little bit here today. Um, Basically humanizes a story. But one thing I have been kind of laying off on people is you shouldn't really have like long quotes in a story. You should really have like just short quotes. Your writing, actually, your words, most of the news stories are actually written with your words, not other people's words. Direct quotes are only for really like just having like providing some humanization, something witty, something quippy, that sort of thing, and it provides some color to the story. But you want to take what people tell you or show you and basically make and use your own words to write it because you can write better than they can talk. Okay. So that's what you do essentially when you write out the lead, which describes the overall, the transition, which breaks it down into a smaller piece, and then an anecdote, which makes it relatable personal experience. So it gets macro to micro, okay, and then a quote. And then you want to get to like, okay, what's another reason why they hate the tuition? Or they feel students also you get into another reason. Students say it's also unfair since other schools are more affordable. That is true. My son, for instance, he went to William and Mary. Typically, state schools in other states are very, very expensive. William and Mary was only a little bit more expensive than Rutgers, and he lives in state. So he went to William and Mary in Virginia. And then like John Brown, no, Jim Davis said he went to UVA because Rutgers was too expensive or something, okay? But see how they kind of like, it's almost, it follows like some sort of a rhythm. One piece here, one piece here, and it goes on. And then it basically just ends with no conclusion. And then just you typically a news story like this ends with a quote and that's it, okay? So that is the kind of rhythm, the kind of pace I want you to follow in this story, okay? And by looking at the discussion point, that'll help provide you information, okay? Note to international students, which I don't only have in this class, but again, I know that maybe if you don't live in this country or this area, or even in this area, I mean, you know, uh, you may think like, well, Rutgers, how can I deal with that? That's not really my thing. That's not really my area. I don't live there. Well, then maybe that's why really the discussion point is for you. Okay. I mean, it's really for everybody, but I mean, that's just rely on a discussion point. But I mean, lots of people don't, write about things that are happening. They actually, a lot of times, actually, reporters used to be hired and they were told not to live in the area they covered because they bring essentially like a fresh perspective. That too many times when you report on the town you live in, you know too much. There's too much inside. There's a conflict of interest because you know people, that sort of thing. So, all right. So that's again due on the 12th. So again, three things. Friday you have the um, sorry, rewrite for the profile assignment. Monday you have the rewrite for the leads assignment. Um, that one I'll be talking about again because I feel like people did generally well on that, but I felt like there was like again too many people who like went in the headline route. A few people actually. You really just need to write a full sentence. Also, people wrote two sentences when I only asked for one. Okay, so it's just one sharp, clear sentence. Okay, just basically focusing on what's unique, like a 53% murder hike. Oh, sorry, I gave something away. If you have something like that, then you want to focus on that. Okay, and that's specifically. But you also have to write a full sentence, one that has an or a the or something like that. New Jersey reported that they had a 53% murder hike, blah blah blah, this past year, and a 3% whatever. That's the headline would be lacking those articles, those words that fill things in. It'd be like murder spikes in New Jersey. That's not, and it's also written in present tense. Okay. Um, okay. So let's see here. By the way, this is the Board of Governors meeting, June 20th. Should be after, I'm assuming, I guess our assignment, but I'll update you on that. Okay, so what we got here, I'm actually going to show you a video, that actually talks about, it shows that kind of reaction story. But first I want to show you, the book, we're actually about halfway through the book assignments. Um, and chapter 10 actually deals with like how to handle quotes and attribution. Now, one of the things I talked about in one of your stories is like basically I talked about the importance of attribution. Now, I only really showed it. I didn't actually mark people down for it or anything like that. But what you need to know is basically the a news story um has its own way of footnoting, and that way of footnoting is not done by your typical way of footnoting. Okay. This is the video I want to show later. All right, so basically it's done. Sorry. Um, I call it my whiteboard here. Just give me a second here. Things are moving very slowly. And now I got a pinwheel. There we go. Okay. Stop. All right, so now I got another pinwheel. Okay, very old computer. All right, people. Hello. All right, so when you actually attribute information to a source, again, you don't footnote it or anything like that. What you do is you do the he said, she said, or they said. You may, disputes between people. Like, this is a he said. Preferable to put attribution maybe in the middle or at the end. Front, it kind of gets in the way of things. Especially attribution, you do a name. You do the full name on first reference, and it's the last name on second reference. Okay. Um, Joe Biden is planning an invasion of Iraq. Okay. Well, all right. Now, would that need attribution? Meaning he actually is planning on doing it. It's actually on the books, or maybe some other country like Syria or something like that. That they, this is that sort of thing where it's like little known information, little known fact that needs attribution. Okay. Now, this chapter 10 actually does cover some of that, but first, what I want to do is, oops, sorry about this. Sorry, Niana. Yeah, is actually get to that chapter. Okay. First, there's so what you do is now when you get information from a source, whether it's from a discussion point or like a person or something like that, that's yours. That's your information. It doesn't have to be shoved in between two quotation marks and slapped into your story just because somebody said it, right? It's actually information that you could use for your story. And what you have to do is you have to be the interpreter and write it, okay, in a way that everybody can understand, okay? So it says right here, direct quotation. See, this is where people fall into a trap. And that's also kind of lazy writing when you have like these tremendously long quotations, direct quotations. Ambrose said, journalism students shouldn't be dealing with ideas of social, economic, political nature. There's too much of a trade school atmosphere in journalism today. One spends too much time in minor, blah, 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 technical, blah, blah. It just seems to go on and on like a ramble, okay? An indirect quotation is usually the best way to handle that, and that's essentially the paraphrase. Ambrose said journalism should deal with ideas, not mechanical techniques. See, there's a lot fewer words used there, and it's a much sharper sentence. Everything he said right here is said right here. No difference, okay? And then there's also partial quotations you can use, that sort of thing. Maybe you take out like one part of this, one piece of this. There's too much of a trade school atmosphere in journalism school. That's like maybe the most colorful statement there. You make that the direct quote, but you typically write in a paraphrase indirect manner. And the comparison I always use is I had this class when I was a freshman in college at Rutgers, and when you write down everything that's said by somebody and then you quote everything that's being said, you're not really learning or ingesting with the material. Okay. And I had there's one student in my psychology class, Scott Hall 123, great place, who wrote down everything that was ever said. We used to actually read her notes because we didn't write down everything that was ever said. We would read her notes. And because she was just taking down everything that was ever said, she wasn't really ingesting the material. But because we were summarizing it in our heads, we did ingest the material. And we got better grades than she did. I always like to say that when you're doing any kind of interviewing, okay, it's best to first listen, okay, and then understand, internalize, okay. Really get sometimes a lot of times when people will actually like do interviews and that sort of thing, they actually don't even like pull out their pad or their computer or whatever, take notes right away. They just want to know what's going on first, okay? Then you start writing, you write, but when you do it, you summarize. And when you summarize, it's better because what you're doing is your head is actually kind of forming the thoughts into some sort of level of understanding of what's being said, okay? And you're doing that by summarizing, okay? All right, so, oops. So anyway, so when do we use direct quotations? Let sources directly talk to a reader. There's a controversial opinion typically provide evidence for a statement to reveal a character's character, like a color. A lot of times there's even stories that are written based on like things that people say, especially crazy things that are said. Okay. So that's when you typically would use that's a lot of stuff right there. partial quotations. I have had people go too crazy on partial quotations. When you have like too many partial quotations in a sentence or something like that, it gets choppy. Okay, it's really just best to write with your own words. Okay. Um, the transitions and the anecdotes help set up those quotations. Okay. Um, those direct quotes. All right. Purpose of attribution: reporters are not economists or ecologists, detectives, or diplomats. Nevertheless, they must write effectively about such things as unemployment, the effects of oil spills on the environment, blah, blah, blah. Write these stories. Reporters rely on experts and insiders for information, for ideas. Attribution lets the readers know who the reporter's sources are. In other words, it lets you know that lets the reader know they didn't make it up. Okay, so, and this is some of the same things I just said here. They need not attribute this undisputed facts, such as World War II ended in 1945 at Boston, Massachusetts, or when you have a crime scene and 3 people were died in a gun. Well, that might need attribution if it's not known well. Okay, all depends. Especially if that information is new. Okay, sometimes they don't know exactly how many people have died in an accident right away. Okay, so a lot of this stuff I've actually gone over already. Okay. So that's one thing I'm going to be working on in your stories a lot now. So I'm really going to be like looking at attribution and making sure that you have good, clear, crisp quotes, direct quotes, and that you use effective paraphrasing to describe the transitions and the anecdotes in your stories to help really beef up a story. I always tell people that, like, if you have a hard time reaching this 500 word minimum, that I always like say that 450 robust 450 is better than fat 700. Okay, words in a story. But you know when you actually when you actually if you get like information, if you get enough anecdotes and transitions, you're going to report a good story, and you're going to report a long enough story to go way past 500, maybe even. Okay, you just have to go out and get the information, get the people to talk, and basically get the information you need to back up the overall theme, and that is whatever the reaction is to the Rutgers tuition hikes. Okay, all right, so here is the story um that actually, I mean, it's not a very well done story, but there's actually 2 stories right here. It was a terrible incident that happened in Rutgers in 1988, in February 1988, where a pledge drank 33 kamikazes. Horrible story, terrible story. I was there for it. I was working on a daily Targum at the time. And I don't know, maybe your parents have heard about it if they go on the Rutgers, that sort of thing. So anyway, what you this is this but this first what they do is in this particular video is they give the actual update to the story. So what happens is you have the overall story that happened, but once that happens, then it becomes a series of updates, different angles that come out to basically kind of what they call give the story legs. So basically the story keeps going and going and going, and one of those things is do is actually update people on what the latest maybe toxicology results are, or like is anybody being arrested or indicted. But another way they follow it up is by getting people the campus mood, as they call it, like that, a mood piece. Get people like how they feel about a certain thing, and this is what this story does. Okay, and basically what it is essentially is it becomes a reaction to the whole idea of drinking on campus. Now, again, it's not, but what you're going to see is it's not the best written story or best organized story. It's from Channel 4 a long time ago. But what you're going to see is you're going to see the reporter essentially acting as that person who's the narrator, which you need to be in your story. And then she's going to be guiding you through different points in the story by using transitions. And when you're going to know when there's transitions when they start showing, like, typically, like, what they call B-roll. They show like maybe the campus scene. There's some snow on the ground. It's in February 1988 when it used to snow. Haha. So you're gonna see those sorts of things when she's gonna be talking, and that'll be essentially like transitioning to a new point. Okay. But first comes the update.
Medical tests are still being conducted on the body of a Rutgers University freshman to find out if he drank himself to death at a fraternity pledge party. News 4's Perry Phelps visited the campus today. At first glance, this fraternity looks like
So that first part was the update. Now she's going to go into this whole at first glance thing, which is actually a bit cliche. I'll tell you actually where the real lead really comes in.
the other.
By the way, this is where the Kabod house is located now. This is at the corner of, I forget the name of the cross street, but it's on College Avenue, right next to the gym. This was torn down around 1990. This incident happened in 1988.
Rutgers University campus. But a closer examination reveals the remnants of an all-night pledge party that has closed the Greek house of Lambda Chi Alpha, a pledge party that has left freshman James Callahan dead, apparently from drinking too much, and another student treated at a nearby hospital for alcohol-related illness.
The university is in mourning because of it. It's a terrible situation, terrible incident, and it's one that I think we processed and think carefully about a number of issues.
Callahan was one of 13 students who had been invited to join the all-male fraternity. According to one student, pledges were told to drink until they got sick, and evidently that's not an uncommon sight around the university.
All right, so right there, yeah, it's an evidence. That's so basically she's saying that Rutgers shouldn't say that drinking on campus is not an uncommon sight. That's her lead essentially to the story. And she's transitioning essentially at the same time transitioning to the first person who's going to talk. And then now, unlike maybe a typical written story, actually the anecdotes are actually provided straight by the people themselves. So they provide the anecdotes, but it's your job as a writer to actually write those anecdotes.
I think a lot of people get very drunk. I think if you ride a campus bus on a Friday or Saturday night, you see people getting sick on themselves. You see people passing out. I think it's a big problem.
It's widespread throughout the campus, whether in fraternity, in the dorms, or wherever. And I don't know how they're going to stop it.
Callahan and the
Yes, that was me.
rest of the students pledging the fraternity
Transition.
were all under the legal drinking age.
Now we get to some of the anecdotes. Then we get like another transition, moving on to a different point that eliminates the overall point about drinking on campus.
21. A legal
It's not just student reaction; it's also the provost is speaking.
limit that students admit is easy to get around, and a problem school administrators acknowledge.
Try and encourage students to run non-alcoholic parties. We have enforcement regulations and policies, but the precious flavor and stuff, combating all of those efforts.
Fraternities will almost become like drinking clubs now. So that I think it was not about time something like this happened. I wish it had been something where it was just a shock, but maybe this will just change so the atmosphere of fraternities here to clean up their act.
Do you think it's going to change partying habits here at the school?
I don't think so. Not on a long-term basis anyway. I think that for a while things will slow down and then they'll get back to the regular behavior, basically.
And after the fact, at Lambda Chi Alpha, all fraternity and sorority parties have been temporarily banned. Perry.
Okay. So yeah, so right there you had like different opinions and perspectives. They all kind of come together. The larger opinion that is that drinking is rampant on campus and they don't know what to do about it. Okay, but it's filled in by the different little anecdotes provided by the people. The transitions help guide the reader through. Okay. Okay. All right. So I know maybe that was moving a little quick. I'm stopping the share right now. And it's taking a long time. Okay, there we go. Hello, there we go. All right, so there you have your work cut out for you. Okay, new assignment. Thank you for everyone contributing. Again, extra credit goes to those people writing about what's going on in the Middle East and reaction to that. And also, I'm sorry, the idea for coming up with that idea, but the story will be on the 6% tuition increase and the reaction to that is what I mean. Reaction to that. So everybody who contributed, who had both those ideas will be getting extra credit. Okay. Let me know if you have any questions. I've already held some office hours via Zoom. That's no problem. Please, let's do so. Thanks very much, and I'll be talking to you. And remember, the next video will be coming out on Monday.